Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Let me first repeat what my lawyers said upon the charges being filed, so you can hear it very clearly from me. I am innocent of any wrongdoing. I neither conspired with anyone nor directed anyone to do anything illegal or unlawful. My defense will not be that I'm the victim of an old boys network or otherwise. My defense will be that I broke no laws of this Commonwealth, period. Until now, only a portion of the story has been told. Both in press accounts and in the presentment of charges, their story begins with the publication of newspaper articles in the spring of 2014. Their story centers around some personal conflict between me and a former prosecutor in the Attorney General's office. That story is as incomplete as it is inaccurate. Today, I intend to begin to reveal the whole story. But before I do, let me say this. I know that some of you came here today expecting a freewheeling give-and-take press conference. Under the advice of counsel, and for reasons that will become quite clear in a few minutes from now, I cannot. But stick around. I think the story I'm about to tell will raise some very troubling questions of its own. For it's not a story about sting investigations, proposed personal vendettas, or press leaks. It's a story that begins with pornography, racial insensitivity, and religious bigotry. More specifically, a story that begins and ends with the circulation of pornographic, racial, and religiously offensive emails, both within and outside of the Corbett Attorney General's office. The chain of events that led to charges being filed against me did not begin with the printing of a newspaper article in the spring of 2014. It did not even begin as I was sworn in as Attorney General of this great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. No. The chain of events that led to this moment began long before that, and it began with the group of state prosecutors and judges passing pornographic, racially offensive, and religiously offensive emails amongst each other. Email traffic sent and received on government computers and on government time. From the moment this email traffic became discoverable, from the moment that I announced that Jeff Moulton's investigation into Jerry Sandusky's investigation had the technology in hand to track down every email in the Corbett Attorney General's office. Some involved in this filthy email chain have tried desperately to ensure that these emails, and more importantly their attachment to it, never saw the light of day. Literally, within days of the Moulton announcement, newspaper stories appeared questioning my decision on a case which was thought to embarrass and intimidate me. It didn't. Then they moved to the impaneling of an investigative grand jury and the abuse of grand jury secrecy laws, all in an attempt to conceal their involvement in a chain of pornographic and racially or religiously offensive emails swirling around the Corbett Attorney General's office and distributed beyond that office to lawyers and judges around this Commonwealth. At each step on this trail of concealment, they have been assisted, wittingly or unwittingly, by judges and prosecutors, and in particular one, Judge William Carpenter, who to this day prevents the complete public dissemination of these emails under a tortured interpretation of our state's grand jury secrecy laws. It is the same use of these secrecy laws that prevents me today from answering the questions you want answered and I want answered. You may be asking, why would individuals go to such lengths to conceal their involvement in this email chain? But make no mistake, the stakes for these individuals whose participation in this email chain has remained concealed behind the cloak of grand jury secrecy could not be higher. Porngate, as it has been called, has led to the termination of 6, the resignation of 2, and the reprimand of 23 employees of the Attorney General's office. It has caused the forced resignation of our State Secretary of Environmental Protection, his top attorney, and a gubernatorial appointee to the State Board of Probation and Parole. And as you know, the same emails led to the suspension and resignation of a Pennsylvania Supreme Court justice.
Excuse me, Ms. Kane, but you never released Seamus McCaffrey's name in the statement. I mean, are you taking credit for that?
I'm sure. If you don't mind, I'll just get through this statement. I'm sure that at this moment, as I stand under charges and fighting for everything I believe in and have stood for all my life, these individuals believe that they are on the precipice of their ultimate goal, the death and burial of this email chain and their involvement in it forever. For only a grand jury protective order stands in the way of releasing their names and their emails to the public. And should I be removed from office, either by conviction or through a suspension of my license by the state's disciplinary board, the one person who could challenge that order would no longer have standing to do so. But that was their plan all along. What this means to Pennsylvania voters is that the politicians will now choose their next Attorney General for them, and in essence take away the 3.125 million voters who wanted an independent Attorney General. As a matter of fact, we heard even before the charges were announced against me that this grand plan was in the works. This process is now the new stealth political weapon that has not popped up on the media's radar yet. I cannot and I will not let that happen. Today, I call upon Judge Carpenter to once and for all authorize the immediate release of all pornographic, racially offensive, and religiously offensive emails currently in the possession of OAG and on state servers. I do that not as a part of some vendetta. I do that to begin to tell the truth and the whole story. A story that is critical to my defense against these charges. Let me be clear. Today I'm calling for the whole story to come out. Today I seek the following: an order signed by Judge Carpenter authorizing the Attorney General to release to the public all pornographic, racially offensive, and/or religiously offensive emails that were housed in the Attorney General files on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania servers. Language in this order stating that the release of these emails by the Attorney General's office pursuant to this order shall in no way subject the Attorney General or anyone in that office to any civil and/or criminal penalty, including specifically any penalty for any such intimidation, retaliation, or humiliation of a grand jury witness or individual named in a grand jury proceeding, which is a criminal offense that could be brought against one of us. Judge Carpenter's contemporaneous release of all transcripts, emails, and supporting documents related to the issuance of the protection order under which we are currently prevented from releasing these emails. The Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board to suspend any activity it is contemplating or currently engaged unless and until Judge Carpenter takes the above referenced actions. The moment Judge Carpenter takes these steps, I will schedule a press conference at which time I'll stand before you with my lawyers and answer all of your questions. In the absence of Judge Carpenter taking these steps, I must take every precaution to ensure that I am not subject to any further allegations of violating grand jury secrecy laws. I'd like to now address those who have called for my resignation in light of the charges that were brought against me last week. It has been 9 months between that grand jury presentment and last week's charges being brought against me. 9 months since some politicians and editorial boards called for my resignation. In those 9 months, my office has announced 135 child predator arrests, 645 drug arrests, and a third settlement with an electric generation supplier to give back $2.4 million to consumers, in addition to their previous payout of $4.1. It has been 15 months since the first news stories cited in the charges against me and the criminal charges. Again, in that 15 months, since the first call for my resignation, in those 15 months, my office has announced 247 child predator arrests, 1,174 drug arrests. Since I've taken office, there has been an 800% increase in child predator arrests and a 30% increase in drug arrests. So any calls for a resignation based upon the fact that somehow this has been a distraction to me proves otherwise by the facts and the numbers. Pennsylvania is safer now than it has ever been. If this is a distraction, if these numbers are a distraction, if 247 child predator arrests represent a distraction, if over 1,000 drug arrests represent a distraction, then maybe more public service employees need to be distracted, and maybe we'll have a budget soon. As you know, I'm a multitasker. I'm the mother of 2 boys. On Thursday, as Ms. Furman was announcing the charges against me, and since that time, just since Thursday, we've arrested 3 more predators. We arrested an MDJ who was allegedly sexually assaulted a woman from his courtroom, and a drug dealer. I want to say something to my sons, because I didn't get a chance. I didn't get home in time last week to tell them personally about what had happened and what was going to happen. They saw it on the news. You know, they're very digitally enhanced nowadays. They saw it on WNEP Live. So they knew before I got a chance to tell them. So if this is the way I have to communicate with my sons before I can see them by tomorrow, then I'm going to. There's a movie called Boondog Millionaires that I know Christopher knows well. And in that movie, the priest says, you have 2 choices. There are 2 types of evil in this life. One is the traditional evil that I desperately try to save my boys from and the 13 million people of this Commonwealth. And the other type of evil is when good people stand back and do nothing. And I'm telling you, Christopher and Zach, you know I have never been that person. I brought this fight to our doorstep, literally to our doorstep, because that's not the type of person that I am. And I want you to know that I made a promise to the voters of this Commonwealth and the non-voters of this Commonwealth, whether they voted for me or not. I made a promise that I was going to finish a job and I was going to do it. And that's where we stand today. And I hope that if you're faced with the fight, that you get in there and fight, because it's not always about you. It's about other people. And I know, I mean, you're my sons, and I know that you have compassion for other people and that you feel just as much about justice as I do. And while no one would blame you if you bypass the fight, I hope that you stay in it, because I'm staying in it. I love you, boys. I'll see you tomorrow. I thank everyone for coming.
Isn't this just a smoke screen to take the attention off of your accused of doing?
Are you saying this is a conspiracy? This is a conspiracy?